And welcome to another Cardinals Nest here on HBC TV 25. This is the show devoted exclusively to St. Mary's University and its athletic programs. I'm Dean Beckman, joined once again by Donnie Netto, the Sports Information Director for St. Mary's. Glad you could join us here for another Cardinals Nest. And Donnie, a little bit later on in the program, we'll be focusing in on men's basketball. The men's basketball team off to a great start at 4-3 this season. And Jamison Rusthoven, the head coach for the team, will be our guest a little bit later on.
Yeah, I bet you Coach Rusthoven right about this time doesn't want the Christmas holiday to roll around so that they can just keep playing, because it has been a great start to the season. Really capped, first 7 games capped off by a fantastic win against Gustavus last Saturday. So they're rolling along pretty well right now. They've got a big exhibition game against UW Green Bay coming up on the 22nd, and then they head out to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania for a game against Carnegie Mellon on the 28th. So they do have some games over the Christmas holidays, but I'm sure that he would like to kind of just keep this thing rolling and hopefully continue to rack up the wins the way they are.
Yeah, it's been going good, and certainly a lot of buzz and excitement about men's basketball on campus. So we'll get to that a little bit later on in the program, but first, Donnie, let's take a look at swimming and diving. That was, last week we had Matt Higgins on the program from the MIAC office, so we actually never got a chance to get to swimming and diving from the previous week in the Gene Freeman Invitational up at the University of Minnesota. And, it was sort of the end of the start of the season, sort of the first half of the season for the swimming and diving team. And Grace Van Beest put on quite a performance at the Gene Freeman.
She just loves that pool. I think it's that simple. That's a place where she really has excelled all of her career. She had a great MIAC meet and Gene Freeman last year at the University of Minnesota pool, and then again at the Gene Freeman this year. Just a fantastic performance. She was in the consolation finals in a couple of events, and when you think about that, when some of these teams, several of the teams that are in this Gene Freeman are Division I schools, so you're talking about swimming against some of the best around, and she did an outstanding job, and wasn't the only one. You look at Kizzy Bell and Reese Gillespie had outstanding performances on the guys' side. I can't say enough about Joe Tonda and the senior year that he's having. Just an outstanding senior season, again capped at the midway point by strong performance at the Gene Freeman, and Lucas Garadz is having a great season as well. And so things are really starting to mesh for them. And as I mentioned with Coach Rusthoven, I'm sure that Coach Bartholomew would like to have kept her athletes going, because they're really they had a mini taper, as she calls it, for the Gene Freeman. Now they'll start training again. They're heading to Florida right after the first of the year to do some training in Florida, and then they come back, and you've got a little over a month, and that's the MIAC Championship. So it's a fast time, and she'll need her athletes to make sure that they do a lot of work while they're at home, because when they get back, if they don't, I'm sure she'll make them pay for that.
Donnie, one name we haven't talked a lot about this year that really made some noise there at the Gene Freeman and qualified for the MIAC Championships is Chloe Morrison in the 1600 freestyle. Good to see her name.
And when you think about that, the 1600 free, that's a long swim. And you're right. And really, one of the things that Coach wanted to see out of that invitational was get some more people qualified for the MIAC, and it is good to see Chloe get in there, and we're going to be well represented at the conference championships, which is great to see, and I know that Coach Bartholomew is excited about the potential of getting some people into the conference finals, the final events, and hopefully really kind of climbing up that ladder, because they've got a lot of talent this year, and hopefully that they can bring that home at the end of February.
All right, we'll switch focus now and talk men's hockey at St. Mary's. And the hockey team, Donnie, desperately needed this past weekend. They went to Aurora University and came away with 2 big victories. And prior to that had been struggling a little bit, especially in conference play against Concordia, but came back with 2 big wins heading into the Christmas break.
Well, and I think you kind of hit it on the head when you said big. And I think that not necessarily so big in that it was 2 wins, but it was the way they won. 7-1 on Saturday, and then 5-0 on Sunday. So it wasn't just getting the win, but getting it in convincing fashion. And, we've talked a lot all season long about this team and how they really have done a great job of spreading the wealth and making sure that their offense is well balanced. Saturday afternoon, they've got 7 goals, and it comes from 7 different players. And I think that's, it really is important, and we can certainly talk to Coach Rusthoven about that when he's on, because I think it's very important when a team can't focus on one line or one individual, and you have so many weapons to deal with, and right now the Cardinals do. Then you turn around on Saturday and they win 5-0, and you can really sum it up with three players. You got Jay Heinle had 2 goals. You got Albergo, who had 2 goals, and you've got Jake Hebda, who gets a shutout in goal. So it's kind of the opposite of the previous game against Aurora, and it was great to see Nick Albergo do well. He had 5 points on the weekend, which is great to see, and again, just the fact that so many different people are involved in the offense. Jake gets his first starting goal and gets a shutout with 12 saves. Those are the kind of things that are going to make a successful team, is when you don't have to rely on a single line or a single player to do all of your offense. And I think that's what's making Coach Moore the happiest heading into the break.
So when the Cardinals come back now at the new year, right off the bat, they'll be playing St. Thomas, always one of the top teams in the conference. So the Cardinals right now 4-2 in the conference. They're 7-4-2 overall. How are they sitting going into that St. Thomas matchup?
Well, I think anytime, and if people will remember back to last week when we had Matt on, in that conference, anybody can beat anybody. St. Thomas is clearly one of the top teams in the conference, as they have been just about every year, but they're also not unbeatable. Right. You look at the MIAC Showcase, we played them to a 3-3 draw there, coming back from 3-1 down. So we've proven we can play with them. It's going to be tough in that you're coming back from break, right away you're into conference play, 2 very important games, but it is the same for St. Thomas. They're coming back from their break, 2 very important games, so it's pretty even there. But any game in this conference is very important, and I think that this team, coming off of 2 good wins against Aurora, is going to be coming in with a lot of confidence. They're healthy, and hopefully they can be clicking on all cylinders. And then if you want to look even farther ahead, you've got nationally ranked St. Thomas. The next weekend is your final 2 non-conference games, one of which is against Stevens Point, ranked number 3 in the country, and by the way, the defending national champions. So it's a daunting schedule to start the new year, but the way the Cardinals are playing, there isn't anybody on their schedule that they cannot beat.
Right, and one advantage over the Christmas break, and while players never necessarily like to be away from home, they don't have the pressures of the studies, the academic side of things, because that portion won't start up until mid-January. Right. So it is a chance for them to just zero in, hone in on the sport a little bit.
And Coach Moore will bring the players back on the 1st of January. They'll probably practice 2-a-days for a couple of days. They're getting their legs back underneath them and ready for St. Thomas. But you're right. You've got those first couple of weeks of the new year when they're back on campus, when there is no studies and it's just you're a hockey player and nothing else, and that certainly does pay huge dividends. But I think a lot of the schools are in that same boat. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be an exciting 2 months to the end of the season, and I get the feeling that the Cardinals are going to be right there at the end.
A couple of non-conference games this past week, Donnie, for the women's hockey team. And they, too, get a very big win, much-needed win. They lost to Eau Claire 5-1, came back, though, the next day and beat Stevens Point 3-1 to snap a losing skid.
Yeah, they really needed to get that offense going a little bit. And I know, talking to Coach Manor after Friday night's game against Eau Claire, Bailey Wentz scored in the 3rd period, which snapped an incredibly long scoreless streak of over 220 minutes. But he said, hopefully that goal is kind of the opens the floodgates, kind of gets them back into feeling a little confident about their offense. They come out and they score 3 goals against Stevens Point in the 3-1 win the next day. And I think, it doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal, but when you really put it in perspective, the night before, Stevens Point played Augsburg, a team that's in the top 10 in the USCHO.com poll, and tied them 1-1. So now you've got St. Mary's beating Stevens Point, which just beat this nationally ranked team. So again, a team like St. Mary's has got the talent. They just need to figure out a way to put it all together. In the early part of the season, the offense seemed to be clicking pretty well. Defensively, they were a little bit shaky. Now the defense is stepping up a little bit, playing a little bit better, and now they got to continue to get that offense going too. So they're getting there, and I think this break, again, probably comes at a bad time when you're coming with a win. But if you flip it the other way, you come into the break with a win, you feel good about it. You're not spending that week and a half kind of simmering over a loss. So I think that coming into the break with a win, a 3-1 victory over a very good Stevens Point team, is a good thing for the Cardinals.
And how about from a health standpoint? You mentioned the men were healthy. Where do the women sit there?
The women seem to be healthy. Obviously, they've got their bumps and bruises and whatnot, but They've got everybody back, and they're playing well, and that's just got to continue. And they're getting good goaltending. Ashley Corcoran had a really good game against Stevens Point to get the win, and Mara Shields is playing very well as well. So with those two in goal, got a lot of experience and a lot of proven capability. Now it's just a matter of continuing to improve on what they did last weekend.
So in just a little bit, we'll be bringing on the men's basketball coach, Jamison Rusthoven, and focus on the men's team. Before we get to that, Donnie, let's talk women's basketball. 3 really tough games this past week for Brent Pollerai, the head coach for the women's team. But all 3 were very exciting. All 3 really could have gone either way. The Cardinals come out with 1 win there, but they were some really good games.
Yeah, they really were. And you look at the 2 conference games that the Cardinals played, you square off against a Bethel team that at that time was 2-0 in the conference and 6-1 overall, and you play them very, very close and lose, what you can call a heartbreaker there. 3 days later, you've got Gustavus in town. They're unbeaten on the season. You hold them to 49 points. And I think if you would have told Coach Pollerai, you're going to hold Gustavus to 49 points, it's going to be a win in the books. Unfortunately, the Cardinals only scored 45, so it was a 4-point loss. But again, a very good, well-played game. And then they turn around the next day and really put it all together with a big win against UW-Eau Claire, which was really good to see. Again, head into the break on a positive and continue to play very well.
And I think, going back to that Gustavus game, that was sort of a collective right? Like they were so close. Gustavus, just based on their start to the season, undefeated when the Cardinals played them, and the talent on that team, they're going to be right there at the top of the conference standings at the end of the season. We came that close, maybe just a turnover or 2 or missed 3-pointer away from winning that game.
Yeah, no question. And it is. It's one of those that, like I said, if you can hold a team to 49 points, and I'm pretty sure that Coach Rusthoven can back me up, you hold the team to 49 points, you should win. And it was one of those that, defense won that game. Gustavus's defense played a little bit better than ours did, and I think you're right. We had a couple opportunities where there was, a turnover late in the game or a missed 3-pointer that really could have maybe swung the momentum. But that's basketball and that's college sports, and so I was more impressed with the way that they took that loss, which was a tough loss, and turned around literally the next day and really put together a very positive, strong performance in a 65-49 win over a very good Eau Claire team, which was really good to see how they could bounce back like that.
And I think it's fair to say, Donnie, that Brandy Blattner is back in basketball mode, right?
Yeah, you got a 28 career-high 28 points against Bethel and back-to-back double-doubles against Gustavus and Eau Claire. I'm pretty sure she's got her basketball legs under her. Great performances from her. Emma Schaefer played very well. Sam Jones played very well, especially against Eau Claire. There's a lot of weapons. Bridget Audette is getting more healthy every day, and she continues to see more minutes. So that's certainly good to see. But boy, Brandy is a player, and she's a lot of fun to watch, and brings a lot of excitement to that team, and just continues to boggle your mind as you look at the numbers that she's putting up. It's just amazing.
Yeah, and just a minute left here, Donnie. I think in the early going, Coach Pollerai has to like where they're at 7-3. Probably looking for one more consistent scorer, though. You've got Brandy, who's doing it every night. Sam Jones is contributing. Emma Schaefer to a degree, but you do want at least 1 or 2 more who consistently can pour in some points.
No question. And I think right now the key is that Emma has proven to be a great distributor of the ball. She had 12 assists a couple games ago, most in over 10 years in a single game. And so she's proven she can be a good distributor. They've got to find that person who wants the ball. Give it to me, and I'll take it from there. And like you said, you've got Brandy doing that. They need that second person to step up. Sam continues to play very well. Has to be a little more consistent. She has a really good game, and then maybe a little quiet game, and then a really good game. And we need that to be a little more consistent. But I like where they're at. I think that they're sitting very well. It's a crazy conference, and they just need to continue to play their brand of basketball, win the games that they're supposed to win, and when you get another shot at Gustavus, just finish the deal. And that's the bottom line is just continue to take it one game at a time, and not get too up on the wins and not get too down on the losses.
I do all my shoe shopping at ROGAN'S because I know I'll find what I'm looking for and save. You can count on great service, a huge selection, the best name brands. The second pair is always half price. And one more thing, a choice in how to save. I can get my second pair half price now, or just save my receipt and come back anytime and get my next pair at half price. ROGAN'S makes savings easy.
Selection, service, name brands, and the second pair is always half price. Visit online at roganshoes.com.
And welcome back to the Cardinals Nest here on HBC TV 25. Joined now by the head coach for the men's basketball team, Jamison Rusthoven. Jamison, thanks for being on the Cardinals Nest.
You're more than welcome.
Now in your 4th season as the head coach, you're off to a 4-3 start this year. So maybe give us a little assessment, your assessment of the start of this season.
You know what? I'm pleased. It's been a work in progress, as both of you know. To have 4 wins in 7 games is, I'm pleased. I want to say it's, the second best start they've had in 20 years. That said, I also know that we have a heck of a lot of season left. So trying to temper those expectations with results is always challenging. It is nice going into break with a solid victory. It just kind of continues to help reinforce what we've been talking about the last 3.5 years.
Can you talk a little bit, Coach, about that victory? I mean, you look at Gustavus has been a team that has had your number in the past, and a big 75-73 win that really you had to kind of show your mettle at the end, and kind of, with a young team, and you have a lot of young players along with your veterans, but they had to do a lot of soul searching, so to speak, to come away with that win, which really was a kind of a statement for this year thus far.
Correct. It was. We led quite a bit in that game. To be honest with you, from the inside and letting people into the inside, I would have rather had that type of win because I think that type of win sets up more opportunities for other things. Our game that we lost to Concordia, we had several opportunities where it was within one where we didn't execute down the stretch. I know when we were at Bethel, I know some people that were on our broadcast kept referring to the 99 points, but it was a 5-point ball game for most of that game, and the same type of thing happened where when we got it to 5, then all of a sudden we had a couple of missed shots and a couple of turnovers, and that 5 went to 13 really fast, and we couldn't recover. So to have that type of game and execute it down the stretch, to have our guys make big plays, to have big possessions, to have a couple of defensive assignments that we still need to get better at. They had a couple open looks near the end that they should have been a little bit more tougher. One of our big things right now, which has never been the case, is that we need guys to do their job. We've had seniors, our current seniors have been able to kind of float every once in a while over the last couple of years, because when you're losing by 15 or 20, it really doesn't matter what you're doing. You're just trying to play hard. But now, as people float, it gets them in situations where they might get in a little bit more trouble because the possessions are magnified, the defensive assignments are magnified, and it's all of that process of moving it to the next level. Because these seniors have never beaten Gustavus until Saturday. I had never beaten Gustavus at this university until Saturday. It's 6 years. That's a long time. 12 games, when you play twice a year, that's a long time. So again, it's a continued work in progress, but to be able to win the way that we did and close it out at the end allows them to get the confidence to understand how to do it. Because as I've been saying, this last step of the process is, I can't do it for you. I can't replicate it in practice. I can't get you to understand how it feels to do it. You have to be able to do it to understand it. And each one that we do closer, in close ball games especially, helps them to understand what I'm talking about and feel that it factor is what I call it, of how you start to do this moving forward.
I think one of the things that I've really enjoyed in the games that you have had at home is how hard you do play. And that goes from starter one all the way down to the last person that gets into the game. I mean, from start to finish, your guys are going to work hard.
Yes, and you know what, that's been set the tone by our seniors. This group of seniors have been phenomenal, especially, the 3 that have been through the peaks and valleys that we've gone through the last couple of years. in Wiley and Aaron and Chad. And they've just continued to plug away and have believed what I was saying would happen. And then we've got some guys that are just the harder workers that are just equally important in Stevie Moment and Liam Gorman and Jason Tim and Brandon Retzloff that get these guys ready, whether it's scout team, whether they're my bench captains as well, whether it's making sure they're talking, communicate, because those guys, while they may not be in the headlines and they may not be on TV, highlighted at the free throw line, those guys are equally important to what we've been doing and us being able to get to this process.
Well, and that brings up a point I wanted to get to, and that is the depth on this team. I mean, you regularly play at least 10, sometimes more players, depending on the situation. So that has to be a luxury for you, knowing you don't drop off a lot in talent when you get down there. So.
I don't know if I call
or at least it doesn't seem like you do.
I don't know if I call it a luxury as much as I call it a relief. There was some lean years where we had 13 total.
Right.
And, we had 2 or 3 that had played at all. So to be able to go, as you said, 10 or 11, and feel comfortable with that, depending on the given situation, is a very nice peak to where we're at right now. It just gives us much more options. It gives us some things to play with. It lets us actually play the chess match that I like to play during games. If you've noticed, there were a couple times in the game that Gustavus had to adapt to what we were doing instead of vice versa, because we could play this combination or that combination, and then Cruz had a tough time guarding Q on the perimeter if we put him in the post. And, so it gives us some options to be able to mess around with, which is really nice.
One of the things that really strikes me, too, when we talk about the depth, we're going to talk a lot about Q. You're going to talk a lot about Wiley. You're going to talk a lot about Cole. But one of the guys that just has really impressed me this year is Bradley Hill, coming off the bench. I mean, that guy, you talk about somebody who's not only going to work hard, but really brings that energy that he gets on the court. It seems to lift everybody just that little bit, just with the way he plays.
And you know what? I've got 2 right now that are interchangeable in that spot, in Jimmy Cullen and Bradley Hill, that depending upon what we need, can do that. Bradley brings us a little bit... yes, offensively, but he's a little bit bigger body than James, where Jimmy is an instant offense right off the bat. And we're still working, because the thing we've got to remember is Jimmy's in his second year of playing and Bradley's in his second year of playing. So there's still going to be some peaks and valleys with those two. So it just gives you some options where on a night that one of them may not have it going, then we have something else.
Let's talk about the trips out east coming up. Before Christmas, you'll head to Green Bay, exhibition against the Phoenix there. And then after Christmas, Pittsburgh, Carnegie Mellon University. So talk about those trips.
Well, the nice thing that the NCAA has done the last couple years is allowed us to put our exhibition games everywhere. I noticed in one of the broadcasts, somebody said that, why would you play an exhibition in the middle? Well, because you can get some money, and with the flexibility of being able to put it wherever we want to, it allows us to use those that or accommodate those that are calling us to fit it into their schedule. Because realistically, I'm not going to call Green Bay and say, let's play. Okay? I mean, I can get them on the line, but they're going to dictate if and when we're going to play, and realistically what kind of check they're going to write. I mean, that's just how it is. So now that the NCAA has allowed us to do that, especially teams like us where we have 20 conference games and only have 5 non-conference, if we had to try to front load everything and only be able to take teams that say I can only play in November, that limits so many options. So now that we can place it wherever we want, it allows us to have more access to different things. So that's going to be fun, and our guys are looking forward to it. It was a little bit of a reality check when we went to Omaha last year. I think our guys were like deer in headlights when we stepped on that floor. This one I expect a little bit more. I mean, granted, they're a good team. They're just off the NCAA tournament from last year. So it'll be a challenge, but it's more of about the bonding trip, hanging out with the guys, doing something in a big arena, getting your name on a sports ticker underneath. All those little things matter. So that's going to be fun. And, going out east is going to be a blast. We had a trip switched a little bit because we were originally going to go to Puerto Rico. But there were some concerns with a few things that were going on in Puerto Rico mosquito-wise. So we last minute changed that and was able to pick up Carnegie Mellon out in Pittsburgh. And what we're going to do is we're going to fly to D.C., stay in D.C. during the time, play in the middle of the week, bus up to Carnegie Mellon, come back, and just enjoy each other in D.C., which should be really, really fun.
And then when you come back, it's conference and
Yes,
it's,
it is.
it's
Here we
nose to
go.
the grindstone. Talk a little bit about the end of the year here, the final part of the conference schedule. Expectations from you, what you've seen from the rest of the conference thus far. What can we expect?
Our conference is crazy. As you know, there's one team that's undefeated in Bethel, and I picked them to finish top of the pack. I think they're very talented. But that said, I mean, you know, we've beat Gustavus and Carleton, and Hamlin has beat St. Thomas, and Augsburg has beat St. Thomas, and St. Olaf is at the bottom, and Carleton's at the bottom. So our league is absolutely bonkers right now. There's no rhyme or reason. But for us, we've just got to continue to give ourselves a chip, a chair, and a chance. I mean, we have to do exactly what we've done the last couple games and continue to execute, continue to play hard, control what we can control. We'll do our regular scouting reports. We'll continue to do our other things. But realistically, it's about us. And now that we've had this big one against Gustavus, now the key for us this year is going to be able to do it again, and then again, and then again, because that is a new program who's new to winning. That's the grind. It's not so much who you're playing as it is picking that level up again to do it again and do it again. It's that one thing that championship teams take for granted because they've done it before. They know how to do it. We're a young team like us. It's to get them up again, do it again, and try to maintain that level so that it's consistent at a high level across the board.
I wish we had more than 30 seconds for this last question, but I've really enjoyed talking pregame with Kyle Brown. He's great basketball mind, new assistant coach
Yes.
for you, though. So tell us a little bit about Kyle.
Coach Brown is, I have seen on the road for many years. He's a grinder. And when I had the opportunity, due to my assistants, because of what we've done, have been able to move. Obviously, everybody saw Coach Melvick running the show until Todd came back. But he's there. One, Bemidji State, and then I had two that are doing some wonderful things over in Wisconsin. So when I had the opportunity, I needed somebody with some special expertise. Kyle loves to recruit, which for me makes my job a little bit easier. I've had to do a lot of the grunt work to get us laid down to where we're at. So be able to take something as big as that off my plate and get to somebody who has the knowledge, the connections to be able to say, all right, coach, you need to go here, coach, you need to text here. Instead of me saying, okay, here's where are we going, lets me be able to move in another direction a little bit more. So it's been good. He's been a great addition to what we're doing.
All right, Jamison Rusthoven, thanks for being on the show. Good luck
Thank
the
you.
rest of the year here.
Appreciate it.
So the last part of the Cardinals Nest here is going to be like when I'm trying to get a Christmas gift ready for one of my kids as they're arriving home from school. It's going to be a quick wrap-up, Donnie. Great interview with Coach Rusthoven. You can see why everybody's excited about this team.
Yeah, and they are playing so well, and he does have so many great individuals on that team, and I'm not just talking on the basketball court, but just good, solid individuals, and a lot of fun to be associated with, and it's fun to see them getting some reward for the hard work that they've been putting in.
Yeah. All right, well, that's going to do it for the Cardinals Nest. This is our last show of 2016, so happy holidays, and we'll see you in 2017 with another Cardinals Nest here on HBC.